But this is Larry Harris, the assistant GM. He was on a broadcast yesterday on ESPN, and here's what he had to say about the locker room.
Is there any worry or any adjustment? I know a lot of fans were talking a lot last year about the struggles on the road. Internally, do you do anything, or do you just, that's in the past, that's in the rearview window?
Yeah, you know what? I think you have to be honest with yourself that was a big concern. And I think that a lot of people alluded to that in the playoffs that we finally were eliminated. I don't think you can run from it. And I think one of the things, most importantly, I think it had a lot to do with our locker room was fractured. It was not, we're a strength in numbers. It's always been kind of our motto, what we go by, but we just did not have it. And I think that carried over on the road. I think we also played a little bit of, where there was some load management that went on, and then all of a sudden it just becomes it's your own worst enemy. We start 0-5 on the road, and we just never were able to get back to it. And sometimes use it as a crutch, but I think this year I would be very surprised that you'll see us win 11 games on the road.
Our locker room was fractured. That's Larry Harris, who's been with the Warriors for a long, long time. Assistant GM, runs the draft. When you heard that, Shasky, when you heard him say the locker room is fractured, did you say, duh, or did you say, wow, there's somebody actually admitting that the locker room, there's a divide there? Mm-hmm. And it seems like that divide, okay, we're going to get the guy out who we believe kind of divided things. Not that I'm blaming everything on Jordan Poole, but they feel like, okay, moving off of Jordan Poole, because there was some issues in that locker room, and we believe that, you know what, they're just never going to get right. They're never going to get right. We can't expect, and I can't expect Jordan Poole to ever get right with Draymond Green after what happened. And I'm not trying to talk about that. But there you have Larry Harris basically admitting we had a fractured locker room. And I sit back and think, damn, they made the second round of playoffs? I'm telling you, man, when this 30 for 30 comes out, we're going to be shocked at how bad last season was in terms of just chemistry off the floor with this basketball team.
This reminds me of like when you see these documentaries about people that were living with someone in their house and they're talking to a therapist years later and they're looking back on traumatic experiences from their childhood and they're like, yeah, I didn't realize the house I was living in was so messed up. Like that's what it feels like to me is now everybody's coming out and they're all in their own therapy mode, if you will.
I think they didn't want to admit it during the season, which I think.
Well, no, you can't show vulnerability.
But if they go back, I wonder if they would change things or the way they approached it and just meeting it head on saying, look, we have an issue here. We got to fix our locker room. We have to fix our locker room. Maybe it would have helped.
Well, I'm sure the locker room is one aspect. Like, there's also the actual personnel and what you have on the court, which was also an issue, which it's not like they were the best team in the league physically, top to bottom, or their roster was. Like, they had a layered issues. Like, they had a lot of issues. I think the locker room was a big part of it, and it bled over to maximizing maybe limited players or things like that. And there's a lot that goes into it. But my point is, I think a lot of people are coming out now, whether we're talking about Steph Curry, whether we're talking about Steve Kerr, Draymond Green, Jordan Poole, Larry Harris. Pick the person.
Well, Jordan Poole is not saying anything.
No, but I think
silence is
the
golden.
fact that he's not saying anything to me also speaks volumes. So I think everybody's looking back on everything, and it feels like to me they're all reflecting on the trauma of what they endured last year.
You think Jordan Poole should come out and say something?
He can do whatever he thinks is necessary for himself.
I agree with that, but do you think?
I don't think.
What do you think it accomplishes?
Now he's not on the team. It doesn't matter.
You play devil's advocate. I don't think it matters either. I don't care whether he talks or not. I think he's handled the situation off the floor perfectly in terms of not talking about it. But there are some people who think that, man, if he just said something, we could all move on from it. Because I think there's a segment of people, whether it's Warrior fans, Wizard fan, media members, whatever it is, I think there's a segment of people who cannot move on until they hear him say something, which is sad. I've moved on from it. He's in Washington. I'll watch his games. I hope he has a great career. I really do. I think the young man is he's a great dude. He's a great kid. You want to talk about embracing community because it means so much to you? The guy embraced the Bay Area.
For sure.
He embraced San Francisco. He embraced this culture out here in the Bay.
You can't please everyone. So, like, whatever your course of action that you choose to do, not speaking, addressing it, whatever, you're going to get ripped. Like, think about people that have sat down and done the quote-unquote Diana Sawyer, heart to heart, whether it's Richie Incognito or Draymond Green with Kevin Durant. Like, we're going to pick apart whatever you say. So sometimes less is more. And if that's what he's chosen to do, I think now moving forward for him, how are him and his teammates in Washington?
Yeah.
Does anything happen there? What happens with Draymond Green and his teammates moving forward? Is this the only incident, or does it happen again with somebody else? I think over time we'll get a little more clarity. And you know what? Sometimes there isn't that guy was right and that guy was wrong. Sometimes both people were wrong, or both people were slightly right, or they just couldn't coexist. That's why divorce happens everywhere.
Yeah, I wonder what the fans think. 888-957-9570 on Larry Harris basically admitting that the locker room was fractured. Some people probably like, duh, we know that. Of course. There's a lot of individual agendas going on last season. Our locker room was a mess. It was a mess. And I give them a lot of credit. They got to the second round in Game 6. And I don't know how. I don't know how they got past Sacramento, considering what was going on in that locker room.
Knowing what you know now, do you think they should have traded somebody that second that everything happened? Knowing what you know now, which is completely unfair and it's completely reckless because you couldn't do it because he's only making $3 million and blah, 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 blah. To salvage last season, just hypothetically, knowing what you know now.
Well, some of the things I know now are some of the things I knew back in October.
Okay.
So a lot of this is
Thanks for telling me.
Yeah, I can't tell you. You're Lord Loudmouth. Everybody, the Chronicle would have knew what was going on. Got to keep the sources intact. But a lot of things that are being said, I kind of knew. So I'm not overly surprised by what Larry Harris is saying. I think a lot of other people are. I knew the locker room was fractured. The common fan can tell the locker room was fractured with the way they play. When you only win 11 road games, what does that tell you? When you go on the road, you're not hanging out together. You don't want to be around each other. Here at home, okay, you're playing in front of your home fans. You got the family members there, but you're out there by yourself on the road. You're like, don't really care. What should have happened? And it's too late now. What should have happened, though, was that Draymond Green should have got a stiffer punishment. Honestly, believe if Draymond would have got a stiffer punishment, it would have enabled some of the youngsters to say, okay, they're holding everybody accountable. Now let's move on. But nothing really happened. Nothing really happened. And you went into the season, and it was just like, Because remember the question was being thrown around, are you really going to suspend Draymond Green for ring night? Are you really going to hang that banner without Draymond Green?
That feels very, in terms of significance, does anyone even remember anything from ring night? I'm asking you, and as great as we hype it up and we get, ring night. Like, of all the times that the Giants, for example, got their rings, the only thing I can remember is when Brian Wilson ran the flag out to center field. I have very vague memories of ring nights. I remember winning championships and the parades and things like that. But like ring night feels so inconsequential in the it's just in the grand scheme of things.
I remember what happened on ring night. I sat there in the tunnel. I wanted to look at or feel the reception for both Draymond Green and Jordan Poole. Jordan Poole got a super loud ovation. I mean, he was as loved. He got probably the second or third loudest ovation on ring night. Draymond Green, there's a lot of people. Nobody booed. There's a lot of people with their hands in their pocket. Very tepid.
Well, I just think that, like, punishment, we think it has, like, this is, okay. The prison system has repeat offenders for a reason. Just because you punish people doesn't mean they're going to rehabilitate themselves. So, for example, with the Draymond Green thing, you punish him. Right. That doesn't mean Draymond's on his A game the rest of the season with everyone. That doesn't mean that he doesn't come back with no bitterness or anger or frustration. Yeah. That doesn't also mean that Jordan Poole's satisfied with your punishment. Like, there's a variety of things.
Well, yeah, you may lose Draymond Green.
Exactly.
And Draymond Green may not be a Warrior today. That's the risk you run. But you also lost a young player who could have helped you in the playoffs who just was gone. He was absolutely gone.
I don't even know if there was looking back on it, I feel like there was no salvageable way to save the season because there was a lot of things going wrong. I don't think their bench was great.
It wasn't.
I don't think Clay had a great year. I mean, he had moments of great year, but overall it was like it was up and down. Steph didn't have his greatest year. Wiggins didn't have a great year. Draymond was good, but
Steph Curry healthy was like a top 5 player.
But he wasn't healthy all year.
Yeah, but when he was on the floor, he was a top 5 player. Yeah. I kind of, health is a thing. I get it, but
I mean, of his 14 seasons, is this a top 5 season?
No, he's an all-time great.
Well, I'm just saying, as we're assessing the years,
he was having a top 5 season in last year's league.
Okay.
Was he not? Was he
four-
not?
But he missed
I'm not
a bunch
talking about
of
his
time.
14-year career. I'm talking about last season. Last season, when he was on the
I
floor,
think
he
when
was a
it's all
top
said
5
and done
player.
and you play less than 60 games, I don't know, on a team that's an 8 or whatever, 6 seed, I don't know that you could say that you had the greatest season when you're one of the all-time greats.
Sacramento was a 3 seed, and they were 3 games behind them in the standings, despite losing Wiggins for 2 months and not having
You're
Klay
asking the
Thompson
question
at
and
times.
I'm answering it.
Yeah, well, I disagree with it. I think Steph Curry on the floor had a top 5 season. When he was on the floor, he was a top 5 player in the league. Was he not?
Jokic,
You don't even
Embiid-
answer the question.
No, he wasn't last
Okay,
year.
all right,
I
I
don't think he
disagree
was
with that.
last year because, I look at the comprehensive years of other players, and I don't think that because of the missed time and because of what they did as a team, I don't put them up there.
What 5 players had a better year than Steph Curry
Well, the
last
two
year?
big guys at the top are obviously had better years
All right.
than him. I mean,
Okay.
Jokic and Embiid. Okay, you're going to go right off top. I'm going to go with those guys. Who else outside of them? I mean, Jason Tatum had a hell of a year. No.
At times, yes.
During the regular, we're talking
Yeah,
regular
regular season.
Yeah, he had an excellent
Okay.
season. Giannis missed a bunch of time, but he was excellent when he was out there. He can make the same argument as Steph.
Exactly.
And I don't consider it a top 5 season for him.
All right. By the way, 5 minutes. Shameless shout outs. Line them up right now. Shout out whoever you want to shout out. 888-957-9570. 888-957-9570. Shameless shout out. Shout out the Warriors. Shout out the Warriors for trying to fix their locker room. Larry Harris, what most excites him about this season?
I think most importantly is just a professionalism and calmness that we need. I thought our locker room lacked a little bit of that. I think Draymond certainly could use another big voice in the locker room, somebody that's been through the wars. You can never be a bad situation when you add another Hall of Famer to our group. I think he's going to bring, whether it's starting or coming off the bench, whatever Steve decides to use him, I think it's just going to bring less turnovers, less fouls. I think a calmness to our group. I think also he's going to be able to unlock Kuminga, which we're excited about, as well as Moses Moody. And not to say he's going to play exclusively with those guys, but I think his IQ, his competitiveness, and willing to win, I think it's really going to permeate all throughout our whole organization in the locker room.
That was, of course, about CP3, and having another voice in the locker room. And they keep mentioning everybody from the Warriors. He's not going to turn the ball over, which, of course, Jordan Poole turned the ball over a lot. 4th overall in the league. Can't get around that. No bad fouls. Jordan Poole had a lot of bad fouls. A lot of bad fouls. I mean,
The whole team did, but he did.
he
really
had
bad.
a lot of bad fouls.
My favorite was when he fouled LeBron 1,000 feet away from the hoop. Remember that when they were jarring at the top of the key?
I'm telling you, they're a better team today than they were a month ago. And everybody's saying it, and I kind of believe it. Let's go to